Dominique was a good mom.
Minutes before that, supporters of Clayton filled rows of this courtroom. They watched as Oxford police officer Matthew Kinney came out in a jail jumpsuit and in chains, accused of killing the 32-year-old mom and carrying out a lengthy affair.
He didn't want his wife to know that he'd been over there spending all this money. He was in love with her.
Kids meet the officer. They thought he was just this, good guy, but find out, he's not.
She was a mother of 4, a friend, a woman who carried the world on her shoulders, and everyone around her could see the strength, the light, the love. That was Dominique Clayton. But behind the smiles and laughter, there were struggles, bills, kids, life. It was a lot. And when someone came along, promising help, Dominique thought maybe, just maybe, she'd catch a break. Little did she know, the help would turn into something darker. The trust she gave would cost her everything. This is the story of Dominique Clayton. A life full of love ended in tragedy. Dominique Clayton, affectionately called Lucy, was 32 years old and living in Oxford, Mississippi. She was a single mother raising 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, all under the age of 14. Her kids were her heart. Everything she did was for them. Life was not easy. Money was tight, bills stacked up, and raising 4 kids alone was exhausting. Still, Dominique showed up every day. Friends say she was loud, funny, and full of life. If she wasn't around, people noticed. She had a strong personality and a big presence, but behind the smiles, she carried stress, especially financial stress. In August of 2018, Dominique met Matthew Kinney, a police officer with the Oxford Police Department. At first, the relationship felt like a blessing. For the first time in a long time, someone was helping her. Matthew bought her a car. He helped with bills. He talked about helping her get a place or even buy a home. For a mother who had been struggling on her own, that meant everything. It eased her worries. It made life feel lighter. Dominique was happy at first, relieved, grateful. She finally felt supported, but there was a problem she couldn't ignore. Matthew was married. He had been married 2 times. His first wife tragically died, reportedly by suicide, and he later remarried, fathering a child with his second wife, and they had a young child together. In addition to that, he had teenage children from his earlier marriage. Matthew insisted that their relationship remain a secret. He didn't want them to go on public dates, tell anyone about each other, or be seen together. Everything had to happen quietly, behind closed doors. Over time, the happiness Dominique had felt in the beginning began to fade, and Dominique wanted out of the relationship. There were different stories about why Dominique wanted to end the relationship. Some said it was because Matthew was controlling. Others said it was because he was married, and she was tired of all the secrecy. Some even suggested that it was because he ran out of money and could no longer support her. Whatever the real reason was, we may never know for sure. What we do know, according to her family, is that she wanted out, and she tried, over and over, to make that happen, but he refused to let her go. She even threatened to tell his wife about the affair, hoping that would finally make him leave. Instead, Matthew's behavior became more controlling and possessive. Family members said he would pressure Dominique, act angrily, and make her feel trapped. What had started as help and support slowly turned into something that weighed on her. Dominique confided in loved ones that she felt stuck, like there was no way out. Rumor has it that Dominique even feared she might be pregnant, which made everything worse. She didn't know how he would react. She didn't know what would happen if his wife found out. This could possibly make the situation worse. On the night of May 18th, 2019, Dominique's children were staying with relatives for the weekend. For the first time in a long while, she had a break from the constant demands of caring for her kids. The house was quiet, and the weight of everyday life was lifted, if only for a few hours. That night, Dominique decided to go out and have some fun, something she rarely had the chance to do. Later that night, Dominique called Matthew Kinney to pick her up from the club. He was on patrol at the time, but agreed to give her a ride. He dropped her off at her car, and once she got home, she let him know she was safe. After that, she went to bed, expecting a quiet night alone. Later, after Officer Kinney's patrol shift ended, he made a series of deliberate choices. Instead of going straight home, he returned to the barn where the police horses were kept. There, he left his cell phone behind. Investigators would later believe this was done on purpose, so his location could not be tracked during what came next. Matthew then drove his marked patrol car back toward Dominique's neighborhood. He did not park directly in front of her home. Instead, he stopped nearby, out of sight. The house was dark. Dominique was asleep in her bed. Matthew entered the home quietly. He saw her sleeping and left again, returning to his patrol car. From there, he retrieved his department-issued firearm. Then he went back inside. In the early morning hours of May 19th, Dominique Clayton was shot once in the head while she slept. She never had a chance to defend herself. Matthew left her there and drove away. Before going home, he returned to the barn to pick up his cell phone. Just minutes later, he sent Dominique a text message as if nothing had happened. Investigators would later say this message was meant to create the appearance that he had not been there. As he drove, Matthew threw the spent shell casing from the gun out of his car window. It was never found. Later that afternoon, Dominique's children returned home from spending the weekend with relatives. They had no idea anything was wrong. It had been just another weekend away, and they expected to walk through the door and see their mother like always. One of the children had an idea to play a small prank on her. He was told to go inside first, carrying a toy, planning to scare his mom and make her laugh. It was something innocent, something children do. But when he walked into the house, everything changed. Instead of finding his mother awake or resting, he found her unresponsive in her bed. She wasn't moving. She wasn't waking up. The moment was confusing at first, then terrifying. Overwhelmed and scared, he ran back outside and told his siblings that something was wrong. The laughter and excitement of coming home disappeared instantly, replaced by shock and fear. What those children discovered that day would change their lives forever. After the children ran outside in panic, adults were alerted and emergency services were called. Police and first responders arrived at the home and quickly realized this was not a medical emergency. Dominique Clayton was gone. The house was sealed off as investigators began their work. At first, there was confusion about what had happened. There were early questions and even suggestions about whether Dominique may have harmed herself, but that idea quickly fell apart. There was no weapon found anywhere inside the home. As detectives looked closer, they learned something important. Dominique had been involved in a secret relationship with Matthew Kinney, an officer with the Oxford Police Department. That revelation immediately raised serious concerns about a conflict of interest. Because one of their own officers was connected to the victim, the case was turned over to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation to ensure an outside independent review. Matthew was brought in for questioning. He admitted to the affair but denied having anything to do with Dominique's death. Still, investigators were not convinced. As they pieced together the timeline, troubling details began to surface. Surveillance footage from near Dominique's home showed a marked police patrol car arriving in the early morning hours and leaving shortly after. Records showed Matthew had been on duty that night. The timing did not add up. Investigators also learned that Matthew had gone out of his way to leave his phone behind during a key part of the night. To them, it looked intentional, like someone trying to avoid being tracked. The evidence continued to build. Just days later, Matthew Kinney was arrested and charged with capital murder. The news sent shockwaves through Oxford. A police officer sworn to protect the community was now accused of killing a woman he had been secretly involved with. When the news of Dominique's death spread, her family and friends were devastated. Shock turned quickly to heartbreak, and heartbreak turned to anger. They couldn't understand how someone so full of life could be taken so violently in her own home. The pain grew even deeper when they learned the person accused of killing her was a police officer, someone sworn to protect. When Matthew Kinney was arrested, the family hoped justice would be quick and fair, but soon doubts arose. A photo showed him in jail, eating a meal unsupervised. To Dominique's family, it felt like special treatment, something she never received in life, and certainly not in death. Family and friends spoke out, questioning whether his former role as an officer was protecting him. During his first court appearance, loved ones filled the room, some crying, some shaking with anger. Outside, supporters demanded accountability and wanted Dominique's life remembered, not just her death.
But in Oxford, there is no escaping what has happened. A young mother is dead, and a member of this police department is now charged with her murder.
Today is about justice for Dominique.
Those words from Oxford Interim Police Chief Jeff McCutcheon outside the police department he leads concerning the investigation into the death of 32-year-old Dominique Clayton. Neither the chief nor the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation would say whom they think did it, but they did say an Oxford police officer is in jail because of it.
Oxford Police Department investigators and MBI special agents acquired information which ultimately led to the arrest of Matthew Paul Kinney.
The 4-year veteran of the department was described as being involved with Clayton. Law enforcement did not elaborate just how. There was plenty of speculation beforehand that indeed an Oxford police officer was involved with this woman's death, but it took this news conference to confirm that it was true. And as for the people of this city, they got these words from the leader of the police department.
To our community, we know that you're hurting, and we want to assure you that we will not hide behind our badge.
The last word we heard was that Officer Kinney is being held in Batesville in the Padilla County Jail, but we understand he will be brought back here to Oxford tomorrow for his initial court appearance on that murder charge. For now, we are live in Oxford, Lafayette County. I'm Craig Ford, WTVA 9 News.
And Kinney is a member of the Oxford Police Department's Mounted Patrol. Law enforcement said that Kinney is not from the city, but came here from another department. The police department's telling the community that even though one of its own is accused of wrongdoing, it will not hide that.
I just feel so sorry for them kids to find their mother like that.
And as you can imagine, the news of Dominique's death is sending shockwaves throughout the area, with her family begging to know why this happened in the first place. WTVA's Evan Hensley is joining us live in Oxford with reaction.
And it was at this home behind me where 32-year-old Dominique Clayton was discovered on Sunday afternoon. And while friends and family members are shocked of her death, they did share some memories of me of, they say, a woman that was gone too soon.
She always kept a smile and speak to you, and she always loved a hug.
And that is Josephine Williams, a cousin of Dominique Clayton. The two were close and were always in contact with each other. Williams has struggled to sleep after the loss of not just a friend, but a mother of 4.
Just feel lost right now without her being here, because I'm so used to talking to her on Facebook and laughing, talking and singing, making her happy.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna miss that.
As the case moved forward, prosecutors made it clear they believed Dominique's murder was planned. Matthew had left his phone behind, parked away from her house, entered her home while she slept, returned with a gun, and sent a text afterward. These actions, they said, showed intent. Matthew pleaded not guilty at first. His defense said he was overwhelmed and trapped, but prosecutors argued nothing justified what he did. Eventually, he reached a plea deal, avoiding the death penalty, and pleaded guilty to Dominique's murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, no chance of release, no second chances. Dominique's family cried, held each other, and finally felt some accountability. The family didn't stop there. They filed a civil rights lawsuit against Matthew and the city of Oxford, saying the police department had failed to supervise him and initially tried to label Dominique's death a suicide. The family won the case and was awarded $2.2 million, the largest settlement in Mississippi history for a police-involved killing. For them, the ruling was more than money. It was a statement that Dominique's life mattered and that those in power must be held responsible when they abuse it. Still, nothing could bring her back. Her 4 children grew up without their mother. A family was forever changed. A community had to face the truth of betrayal by someone trusted to protect. Dominique's story did not end in silence. It ended with accountability, and with a family determined to keep her name alive. They stood in their grief, their pain, and their strength, making sure the truth was told and her life remembered.
All right. Good to see everyone. All right. The matter set this afternoon is the same as the person Matthew Kinney. I think for the record we need a little background because ordinarily we would have had an initial appearance and bond hearing before now, but yesterday along with the state was wrestling with the question of whether or not this defendant who is charged with crime of murder was entitled to a probable cause hearing under Code Section 99-328, and I entered an order relieving the Justice Court's burden of having an initial appearance and making the bond determination until we had an opportunity to decide on the question of whether or not there was a need for a probable cause hearing, as I said. But the record needs to further reflect that I met with the counsel for the state and for the defendant and expressed my view that basically the crime of murder is always going to fall outside of the performance of official duties for a law enforcement officer. I can imagine mine wouldn't always fall outside the lawful duties. And so, shared my view that I did not believe that a probable cause hearing was necessary or required. Certainly, I think that law enforcement acting on their best information as soon as they felt that they had probable cause to make the arrest, and they did so. So I suggested that we don't need a probable cause hearing today, and I don't think the state nor counsel for the defendant has agreed with me. I want that clear for the record. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And another thing that was a bit different is because we had the question of probable cause hearing, I did ask Ms. Kilpatrick, one of the other defenders here, to go ahead and take the appointment to represent the defendant in this case. There's not been a determination whether or not he's eligible for a public defender, but he's entitled to a preliminary hearing, and the question of this probable cause hearing, that you need to be represented in that matter also, and I appreciate your willingness to come in on short notice. So that leaves the defendant's initial appearance, and I don't usually do those, but I will in this case because the job is mine. I guess he needs to come forward at this point.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you Matthew Kinney? What is your age? Have you provided with your attorney with your address in the free world? Okay. If you're granted a bond, you need to know that you should notify your attorney if that address changes at any time, and notify the court. I didn't request the charging affidavit. Does somebody have a copy of the charging affidavit? I believe I'm supposed to present it to them. I'm sorry I didn't ask for it. Yes, Mr. I'm sorry. We'll come back to that. Thank you all for getting that for me. I'll come back to the charges in a minute, but I want to first talk to you about your right to counsel. Make sure that you understand that you have the right to an attorney, whether or not you can afford one. Obviously, you should know that because I've already appointed an attorney for you. However, if you can afford an attorney, you're required to employ your own attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you by the court, either the one that's representing you today or another. There's paperwork you're going to need to fill out to determine whether or not you qualify for court-appointed counsel. Also, you need to know that you have the right to remain silent as to any charges brought against you, and that any statements you make to anyone can be used against you. You have the right to communicate with your attorney. If you're incarcerated, you have the right to reasonable access to your attorney as well as to your family. And finally, I want you to know that you have the right to a preliminary hearing if you or your attorney makes a demand for a preliminary hearing. That should be provided to you within 14 days of your request. All right. I'll come back to the charging affidavit. That's all I need. That's the only other thing I need to go over with these you guys said. Sorry about that. I didn't surprise anybody. All right, come on back up. I have a copy of the affidavit and the warrant in this case, and I'm going to provide that to your attorney to give to you. The crime with which you're charged is that of murder. All right. You understand everything I've explained to you here today? All right, you can be seated. Thank you. Bond. That's the next thing on the agenda for today is the determination of bond. Again, I have met with the district attorney and the assistant district attorney and the defendant's counsel this morning to discuss a bond hearing. That can go a lot of different ways. It can involve witnesses or not witnesses and all sorts of things. And we discussed it, and it was suggested to me or brought up, I don't know exactly how this came up, but that the state principally, I think, wanted an opportunity to review the position it wanted to take on the bond and have some time to do that in hopes, maybe, I don't know, of seeing if a bond recommendation can be made to the court rather than have the court make one without a recommendation, without some sort of agreement made between the prosecutor and the defense attorney. And ultimately, what I've been asked to do is defer a bond hearing until possibly one day next week. At whatever date, it will be a date to be determined, not to be set today. To give the attorneys an opportunity to consider whether they wish to have a contested bond hearing or make a recommendation or further decision, which I asked Ms. Kilpatrick to confer with the defendant about whether or not he's entitled to have a bond hearing now, and he was agreeable apparently to postponing that until a later date, as early as next week, but a date to be determined, and until such time he will remain incarcerated without a bond. Now, did I correctly state what the state and the defendant have agreed to?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
And I feel certain to make a recommendation of reasonable bond for the defendant without the necessity of a hearing.
Okay. All right, he'll remain in jail until such time as we have a bond hearing. Anything further?
Yes.
All right, so that's adjourned.